All right, guys, welcome back to Real Estate Today, and make sure you watch this because none of us are really cut out for anyway. So we're here to bring you some really good topics today. Number one, what's going on in the interest rates in the world? We need to be ready to pounce. We got to be ready to pounce on it. Number second topic we're doing is in the day's buying environments. Are people overpaying? Are they actually doing smart purchases and they're actually buying a piece of property? And we're going to look at the holistic approach for that as far as all the tax deductions and everything to really make it all make sense for you. And the third thing is really relevant today. If you haven't been hearing in the industry headlines or in the news, it's about buyer's agency and who's paying, are they paying, what's going on. There's lawsuits floating all around the industry over that. So we're going to hit those three topics for you today. So, gentlemen, let's get right on into it. And let's talk about pouncing. Let's talk about people that are not buying right now because they were trained to not buy right now and they're not urged to buy right now, but they know they want to buy in the future. Like, how should we be preparing for this right now? What do you guys think?
Well, if they're not ready to pounce, right? And I've said this before, if they're not literally pre-approved, talk to a lender, understand their buying power, and they're ready to go, then why not? Because if I truly believe that it's coming, right, and I truly believe that I'm going to be able to scoop something up here in the near future cheaper than what I can right now, then I should be ready to do that the second it happens. Because if I'm not, and tomorrow the best deal I've ever seen hits the market, I'm not ready and I'm going to miss it. Right. So if you truly believe that it's coming, you have got to talk to a lender right now. Make sure you're buttoned up, make sure you're pre approved, make sure you have everything. And that way, will also, flip side of it is the lender may come back and say, hey, you got a problem here, right? We need 30 days, 45 days, clean this up, make this payment, pay this off, do this, and give you some advice. And you may not be ready right now, but that way, 30 to 45 days from now, you are ready if something comes available that you're ready to pounce on.
Yeah, I want to legitimize that. Today is Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. On our mastermind training on Monday, there were three individual cases by us agents. What happened to them this weekend? In all three of those cases, their listing went live on Friday. They had multiple showings, they had multiple offers, and they were all going for highest and best on Monday. Right. So I'm not making that up. I'm not trying to put pressure on you, but that is when a house is good and it hits the market and you want it. If you're not, like Mike said, lined up, creases in your collars, looking beautiful, you're not going to get it. You're just going to be one other. And if you get five offers on a house, four people are pissed, and we don't want you to be one of those four. So be ready to present yourself properly, and our agents can help you do that. But that's really happening. I'm not saying that happens every time because we have plenty of houses in the market for 114 days. But that particular day, Monday, three agents reported multiple offers above asking price sold this weekend.
That's right. And you really need to be ready to kind of put your swagger on, right? If you will. When that right house comes on, let's put our hat on for a second. We're a listing agent and I'm representing you who's watching this right now. It's your house. And we hit the market and we get six offers on it right now because we are doing a proper pricing strategy. We know our market. We are pricing this thing to sell. We're not leaving money on the table. We're just pricing it right. And there's enough people recognize that we get multiple offers. So you, as a seller, I want you to put yourself in the seat for a second to kind of legitimize what we're talking about here and saying, all right, now what do you want us as the agents, as your broker, as your representative to be looking for right now? You wouldn't want us to take an offer that's not fully vetted out. And what do we mean by that? There's a difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification and a person that says, oh, he's a CPA, he's a doctor, he's an attorney. It doesn't matter, right? What matters is there a lending institution that says, I've checked this person out and they're good to go. So you're the seller. There's two things. Let's talk about the two things here, right? So I get a letter that says, so it's a Rocket Mortgage. I've pre-qualified John and Mary Smith. They're good up to $1.2 million. Right. So I have that letter. That's what one of my letters says. The other one is another letter that's from United Mortgage, and it says they've been underwritten up to $1.2 million. Right. So it sounds not big differences, but Craig, what's the difference between those two? And how
Verification. I've verified their employment. I can lie and you swear to it with a prequal, right? I make 400,000 a year. I get bonuses of 200,000 bucks. I do this, that, and the other. You take my information, you run it through, and it's Craig's golden. Now, a pre-approval is they verify. They call my employer and say, how much does Craig really make? They run my credit to see what my credit. Oh, my credit score is great. No, they run my credit to see what it is on a tri-merge, right? They verify my deposits, my cash on accounts, make sure I have reserves. All the things a real underwriter is going to want to see to verify, they've done that up front. So
that's
it's almost like it's certified versus you lie and I'll swear to it.
and you as a seller need to be able to be a little cocky in this type of situation. We have multiple offers in there and say, okay, you know what? There's three of you are financing. How many of you are so confident about your financing coming through, you're willing to waive your financing contingency, right? I mean, we see that happen. And if you haven't been through the underwriting process, are you gonna put 25 grand, 50 grand at risk to get this house to see if you get your loan? Or if you've been through this underwriting process, not underwriting the home, I'm just talking about underwriting you as a purchaser. And if you are underwritten and you're walking in with that swagger, you're like, you know what? Here's my 25 grand in escrow, non-refundable, right? No financing contingency. I'm still gonna inspect the home, make sure it's good, but I'm not worried about me getting financing, so you shouldn't either. Therefore, take my offer ahead of the other offers right there. Now, that's the difference that we're talking about. And
You're making me nervous now because this same concept goes on the seller. I cringed yesterday. I was helping an agent with the transaction, and they wanted the house, so they waived their inspection addendum.
mm-hmm,
That scares the hell out of me,
100%.
right? Because if the seller before they put it on the market, it's a 50-year-old house. They scoped the plumbing lines and they did a mold test and they did all the things that a buyer is going to test for. And they show the buyer, hey, look, we just did this last week. We're golden. Our house is in good shape. I'd consider waiving my inspections. But in the absence of that, once I buy that house and clear the as is period, it's mine. It just happened to have someone very close to me. They found an extra $60,000 in repairs that had to happen.
Yep.
And they don't have a choice. They already own the house. Now they got to spend $60,000 extra.
That's right.
That had they known prior to closing, they could have had the opportunity to renegotiate. But they wanted the house so bad, they waive the inspections and they're done.
Well, that's the key, right? I mean, everybody, we buy with emotions, we justify with logic. So that buyer wanted the house so badly. In their mind, they know this is an old house. It was borderline tear down, right? Because I know that what you're talking about. Other buyers would have bought it to tear it down because it's an older home in a really nicer area. So inside of that buyer's mind was the potential, right?
Right.
There's something wrong on that house, and they got a good deal on it, enough to justify and offset that loss. So they walked into that one knowing something
Yep.
might have happened. They should have known exactly what was going to happen, but they didn't have the time, and they had to pounce to be ready to buy to get that out from other people on that one. So, but
So
yeah,
two things. One, buyer, put your best suit on, look clean and crisp, and be verified that you're good. Seller, to get the best deal for you, make your house spit polished and shine and disclose or fix what's there. Just because you find something's wrong doesn't mean you have to pay money to fix it. You just have to tell the buyer to anticipate that you're going to have to spend 40 grand replumbing the house.
and
Right? And that's
and
fine.
and put the seller hat on for a second and say, any buyer who comes to see me, I want you to have my house, but I'm not taking it off the market unless you can prove to me that you have a lender that's willing to fund you, right? I'm not going to take your little pre-qual letter. Who are you talking to? My agent's going to talk to that lender. We're going to call them. We're going to find out, have you been through underwriting? Did they get your pay stubs? Did they get your tax return? Have they pulled your credit? Because why would I, as a seller, take my home off the competitive bidding environment for maybe you to get a loan? Doesn't make any sense, right? So when we're representing our sellers, we're saying, whoa, 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 we're not doing this. Show us your real buyer before we're going to take this asset off the market, right? So, and then if you're our buyer, we're going to say, buyer, before we even look at homes, we're going to get you through the underwriting steps, right? So that's what good agency does. That's what good representation does, whether you're representing the seller or representing the buyer. So that's what you need to be asking of your brokerage, of your agent, and you as a buyer or a seller. If your clients aren't advising you to do this, or your agents, then you should really think a little twice about that one. You need this
Good
stuff.
representation makes deals close.
That's right.
right? Because it's so easy for them to walk away and cancel for dumb reasons, or just buyer fear or remorse.
That's right.
Cool.
Let's talk about another big topic. Our second topic of the day. This is really, really pressing right now. So let's take an example. $500,000 house, right? In today's market, it's a 7.5% interest rate.
Wait, let me set the stage before you go. I know where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I love. I mean, I was a real estate broker now for 30 something years and thousands of transactions, a lot of them, hundreds, tens of thousands of transactions. The coolest part is I own some stocks. So if I buy $50,000 of Apple stock, how much did it cost me in cash?
$50,000.
$50,000. If I buy a $500,000 house with 10% down, how much cash should I use?
$50,000.
$50,000, same amount of cash, but how much of an asset did I get?
500.
Or 500. And what asset is my $50,000 growing at 3% a year, or is my $500,000 growing at 3% a year?
500.
That's the gate. Okay, so when we're talking about leveraging real estate, paying too much or too little, you got to remember you're leveraging real estate. And let's talk about, because you've got some tax break information below this, which you're not factoring into your decision, right? I'm getting appreciation on 500 grand, but only spent 50. What else am I getting? I'm getting interest deductions off my income. I can pay down my income taxes. I'm getting property tax deductions. I'm getting interest deductions on my insurance. There's a lot of things. So now let's break it down. So just remember that beginning picture, and now let's go to where you're going.
Yeah, so we're talking. It's really the holistic look that you have to take a peek at when you're looking at these houses. So let's take a $500,000 house. Let's run this example by. So today you get the mortgage and you want it cheap, but you can't get it cheap. It's a $500,000 house. Your interest rate's 7.5% today. But Jeff, I really want to be able to buy it 6%. Great. I hope you do. Right? That'll be great. We're not there right now. So you can wait till prices go, interest rates drop when the Fed corrects itself and inflation gets under control and the market settles back down, which will happen, right? But here's the dangers of that one. That's what we want to walk you through step by step right now. So
so $500,000 house, a $500,000 mortgage at 7.5% interest is a principal and interest payment of $3,496. So call it $3,500.
Correct.
Right now, what's really important is you have to qualify for that $3,500 payment. You go back to the 2007, 2008 days or 2005, 6 days, you didn't have to qualify. You could just lie and say, I can afford it, and a bank would give you a loan. So that's very important to where we're going here. Okay, so 7.5%, $3,500 a month. But wait, Jeff, I want to wait. I'm going to wait till houses drop to 6%. Rates drop at 6%. So I ran the numbers for you. 6% interest, that same loan, $500,000 loan, is $2,997. So literally, it's $500 difference a month, which is a lot of money. I mean, that's a decent car payment, $500 a month. But I like this. Chris talked about this the other day. So $500 a month is how much a year? $12,000. So right now we got a whole bunch of buyer demand in the marketplace. And the buyers are saying, we want to buy, we want to wait till rates drop. So now if rates drop, who else is going to come into the market?
Everyone.
Every other buyer. So are we have an influx of supply, new listings coming on the market? No. So the existing listings are going to be in higher demand. And higher demand leads what to prices?
Higher prices.
So a $500,000 house in a multiple bidding situation might get up to 510, 515 or more. And now you paid $15,000 more, but if we did the math on today's interest rate, 7.5 versus 6, it would only cost me $6,000 a year. So I'm actually saving money buying at 7.5% today with no extra supply or no extra demand than I would be paying over asking price if rates and more buyers came into the marketplace. Let that spin around in your clothes dryer for a few minutes.
Correct.
It's cheaper to buy a house. And I'll tell you what, I'd rather buy a house for 500 than 515, even if the rate was lower, because the asset is less and my tax basis is less and everything else benefits to it.
Well, it's that 3% gain too, right? 3 to 5% on average, because that's the other thing that we don't factor in. If let's say I buy now, and then even if everything stays exactly the same or goes down slightly 24 months from now, what did I miss if in that 24-month gap? I missed 2 years of appreciation.
Yeah, so 3%
Right.
of 500 grand is 15 grand for 3 years. That's $45,000 in appreciation you
Right.
lost.
That just went out because I wanted to make a short-sighted decision. Right. So it is taking that step back, which is not always easy to do, because I think almost since birth, most of us have been taught to run our lives on monthly payment. Right. We've been taught just to look at whether it's a car, whether it's a bill, whether it's a mortgage payment, it's how much does this cost me a month? Right. Even when people do budgeting, what do they look at? How much do I have coming in every month, and how much do I have going out every month? That's it.
Right.
But there's a lot more to it. Right. We have got to look at this, to Jeff's point, holistically. We've got to look at all the factors and then factor those in at the end of the year, because that all matters, from tax deductions to appreciation. You could very well be making an uneducated decision because we're looking at something very micro, when in the macro, it's a much better decision to purchase right now.
Well, and add to the holistic picture. So now I'm paying $3,500 a month instead of $3,000 a month. But when you really break it down, how much of that payment is principal and how much is interest? Like probably 90% of it is interest. And what do I get to write off my income? So let's say I make $100,000 a year and I'm paying 30% tax. I'm paying $30,000 a year in income tax. But if I get to write off 3,500, let's say $36,000 a year in taxes at my 30% tax bracket, I'm writing at $9,000 of my income tax is going away.
Yep.
That's a third of my income tax I'm saving because I bought the house at 7% rather than sitting on the sidelines waiting to pay more for it at a lower rate.
And that breaks down to $750 a month. Right? If you take your $9,000 divided by 12.
Tax savings.
So that's the holistic approach we're talking about, right? So if you could say, I'm going to rent for 2 more years until rates come down to 6%, right? Then look what you just lost. You lost the $9,000 deduction on your taxes. You lost the 3% appreciation, right? You lost all the other things, that any discount points that you're on your closings you get to write off, the property taxes, right, that you get there, the necessary home improvements. If you have a home office, you get a home office expenses you could play with. And if you have mortgage insurance, you got the same write-offs on there. There's so many. So you need a good qualified person to put this all together for you, to say, okay, let's look at it as the big picture. And then today, here's the real tough part. You can't buy, your purchasing power is not as much today as it will be when the rates drop a little bit. So the home might not be as nice as you wanted yet, right? Or the neighborhood might not be as nice as you really wanted yet, or it might not be as big as you really want. But doesn't it make sense to still buy and then sell it later or refinance it when it comes down, keep it as a future rental property? But to be renting an environment like this with, in essence, 100% interest is what you're paying, because you get no write-offs. You're paying, all of your money is going straight to somebody else. You got no benefits at all, write-offs at all. So buy something, even if it's not your perfect forever home. Take advantage of the deductions. When things drop down again, you can either refi it, keep it as a rental, or sell it, because when rates go back down, there's going to be a ton more buyers in the marketplace. Yep. And they're all going to be looking for homes. So that's our message on that.
I want to wrap it. I wrote this article for September blog, and I wrote down, I said, let's stop the excuses, look at reality. Owning real estate can be advantageous compared to renting. Because if you're not owning, what are you doing? You're renting, right? And property values are still going up. So you're missing out on wealth building and appreciation by renting. You're missing out on fixed housing costs. Have you seen? There's a new build to rent community right around the corner by the Winn-Dixie, where I live. I just looked at them. The 2-bedroom, they start at $2,495 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And it's a townhouse, adjusted, little tiny rooms and stuff. So you're missing on wealth building and appreciation, fixed housing costs. What's that rent going to be next year? When the owner's rent goes up, who's he passing that through? Going to go up. Tax benefits, you're missing out all those. Control and customization, I think, is more important than we think about. I take a lot of pride in my home. I love going to Home Depot and making my gardens look nice and fixing up my shit and making it all mine, right? And my interior decorators dropped off new blinds and shades and stuff just to make it mine. You can't do that in a rental because, number one, it's wasteful, and number two, the landlord probably won't give you permission. And then the third one, and this I think or fifth one, is probably long-term stability. There's lots of studies, you can Google it, on the strength of children growing up in owned homes versus rental homes where they're forced to move all the time, right? And that's just 5 things I wrote that were a benefit of renting versus owning. So before we have this conversation, you got to make your mind up. Or do you want to own or rent? And renting is perfectly good.
This ties kind of back to our first point, right? There are people renting right now that may listen to this and say, yeah, I know I should buy, but I don't think I can because of X, right? I don't have a huge down payment. I don't have, my credit took a hit a few years ago. Here's my question to you. Have you spoken to a lender? Do you know what your purchasing power is? Do you have a plan in place to correct it? Right? I can tell you right now, if you were to call me right this second, I can give you one phone number, and within 15 to 20 minutes, my lender, who I would give to you, is going to have a full recommendation to you on what your purchasing power currently is. And if you honestly cannot qualify right now, he's going to tell you some suggestions and easy things you can do and how long it will take you to be able to get qualified. So if you're listening to this, you're like, yeah, I know, but stop the but and just realize that you need to go get pre-approved or understand your purchasing power right now, and understand that if rates do drop in that time frame while you're working on your credit or whatever else, then you have even more purchasing power. That's awesome. But you need to understand what your picture looks like, and not some hypothetical, oh, I looked at my credit. No, talk to a lender, because there's a lot of programs out there, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. You probably don't need as much money down as you think you do, right? Maybe nothing at all. There's ways to get grants. There's ways to get gifts. There's ways to all this stuff comes into play. But if you're not talking to a real estate professional and or a lender, you're just making stuff up. You're reading headlines. You're assuming. Do not assume anything. Talk to a lender.
Last 2 sales meetings ago, an agent stood up and said, I got to share this with you guys. I just got my customer a new home. It's a townhome, but it's 1,700 square foot with a 1-car garage, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 1,700, pretty nice, much bigger than that apartment I was just talking about. And the builder bought down the interest rate into the 5.99 range. The builder gave $10,000 toward closing costs, which took away most of their closing costs. With the HOA and the CDD and the mortgage interest tax, all that other stuff, the all-in-all monthly payment was under $2,000 a month. And they own the townhouse.
Yep.
And they don't have to live there forever. They live there as long as they can. They take all those other benefits we just gave, and then they turn that into an investment property, and they buy when the time is right for them at that time. It's just it's a different way of expanding our thinking is all we're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Let's hit our last topic. Let's move on to the last topic that we have going on. Because there's a lot of media going on right now, not too super mainstream, but certainly inside the industry right now. There's some lawsuits going along about buyer representation and commissions and payments, and you start hearing little drips in the media about this one. What is the value? The idea is, do you need a buyer's agent anymore? And does a seller have to pay a buyer's agent? And the answer is, no, not really.
No.
So the issue that brings up the question.
Let's look around the world for a minute. The United States has 330 million people. China has 1.2 billion people. India has 1.3 billion. We're a pimple on a gnat's ass when it comes to population, but our gross domestic product exceeds all those other countries by a landslide, right? And one of the biggest part of our gross domestic product is home sales, home ownership. Because not only do we sell a home and earn a commission, but we fund Home Depots and we fund Lowe's and we fund furniture stores and pool makers, and it just trickles down the entire economy, right? And we have built in the US a system that is based on ethics. So let's say you're in London, right? And you want to buy a flat somewhere. You, as the buyer, have to go visit Finch and Finch on Duck Street and see what they have. And if you don't like what they have, then you as the buyer have to go to Smith and Jones Realty on Elephant Street and see what they have. And if they don't have anything you want, then you got to go to another real estate company and see what they've got. And that's very inefficient when you look at the way we do it here. So what we did, and hundreds of years ago, is we created the National Association of Realtors, which says, hey, let's work together. Let's share our inventory to make the buyer experience more pleasant, and let's enhance the real estate market. And then they put a whole bunch of rules in place that said, don't screw each other. You can't hide your inventory. You got to make everything public. You can't lie. You can't steal. You can't cheat. And if you do, there's penalties in place, like we'll take your license away. And there's a whole national consortium of brokers that follow this protocol. And when you think about it, Jeff, and Mike, we've had 50,000 plus closings. How many lawsuits have we been in? Double zeros.
Zero.
Never been sued. Now, we've had some claims made, but we've always settled those. And they were just little tiny things anyway, where really nobody did anything wrong. But the general population of real estate people in the United States are conscientious, hardworking, ethical, or they're not members of the board of realtors, and they don't have to be. Right? So there's a big challenge going on right now saying that we as an industry have been cheating buyers because we tell them our service is free, but in fact, they're paying the commission. And you can debate that one way or the other. But the bottom line is, yes, the dollars are coming from the buyer's pocket to the seller's pocket for the seller to pay us. Right? But it's almost like I went to Walgreens and I bought a pack of pencils. Right? The pencil manufacturer sold the pencils to Walgreens, and Walgreens sold the pencil to me, and they kept the markup, right? But they performed a service.
Well, now moving forward, right? So obviously the proposal based on this lawsuit could result in the fact that if I'm a buyer's agent, I've now got to convince my buyers to pay me directly because the seller is no longer obligated to offer me any form of compensation on the sale of the home, right?
That's the proposal. Which I think is a disservice to the seller as well.
So let's just play this out, though. Let's play this out. Let's say it goes that way. Let's take it outside of real estate, for example.
Okay.
I look at this with attorneys, right? If I get in legal trouble, I have the option to go represent myself in that legal battle, right? Now, the other side has an attorney, so I could go represent myself in court. Now, if I hire an attorney, who's responsible to pay that attorney? I am. Now, why am I hiring them? I'm not hiring them to show me where the courthouse is. I'm pretty sure I can put that in my GPS and figure that out. I'm hiring them because I'm going up against somebody else who's got somebody on their side who's a professional who specializes in negotiation, specializes in the law, specializes in understanding things that I didn't go to school to understand. Yes? So if I hire an attorney, that's why I'm hiring them. That's their value. Their value is to go represent me against that other side, remove any emotions from the equation, which I would have if I'm representing myself, and give me a higher level of representation in a negotiation such as a legal battle, right?
Perfect.
It's the exact same thing in a real estate world.
Well, no, before you do that, though,
yep.
Because there's also two types of attorneys out there.
Sure.
The fee-based attorney who says, yes, give me a retainer, and I'll represent you, and I'll take your thing. And there's another attorney that says, I'll take it on contingency. I'll only get paid if you win.
Exactly.
That's a different paradigm, right? So what real estate brokerage has done based on NAR is said, hey, look, we're going to work for free and only get paid if you're successful. Yep. And if you don't buy, which let me tell you, many buyers do work with agents and don't buy, we don't get paid.
I think, and exactly. And I think now is the time that if this goes down that path, it's just going to be a matter of, is your buyer's agent, right, the person you're hiring technically to represent you, are they worth paying to represent you, right? And as a buyer's agent, you're going to have to demonstrate real value now. Your value is not going to be opening the door and showing them 123 Street and showing them where the kitchen is. They can figure all that out on their own. They already are. Most buyers are searching on Zillow and Realtor.com and finding the homes they want to see anyways, with or without an agent. The value of the agent, though, comes when I decide that 123 Street is the one I want to go. Now the real professionalism has to come into play. Now the negotiation, now the art of that communication with the other side becomes important. And if I've demonstrated that I can do that better than anybody else, they're gonna be happy to pay me. If I don't, then I'm not worth it. right? And so that's where this is going to go if it goes down that path. Is you
Right.
as an agent, they're going to have to truly demonstrate value in order to be entitled to that compensation.
So
Well,
look at this. Let's say you were the buyer and you're given two options: pay Craig $10,000 up front, and we'll take you through closing, or Craig will work for free and only get paid if we find you a house and a deal that you're happy with. Which would you take?
Option 2.
Probably, because I hedge my bets, right? If you don't deliver what
Yep.
I want, I don't pay you,
Yep.
right? Why does Morgan and Morgan take all their cases on contingency? Because they'd rather get 30% of your take than their $500 an hour
Well,
for
they're
their time.
putting their money where their mouth is, right?
Interesting.
They know they can do a good job, and law of averages for them, they're gonna settle and close more cases than they're not.
Right. So I think this is just as much of a message to a buyer's agent, the agent community, than the buyer sellers that we're talking to. Guys, it's time to step up. You got to get damn good at what you do, or you're going to be swept away with the tide. Right. And
and
I'm excited about it. I can't wait because we know what to tell our agents to do. And it's just a matter of those who play the game.
and buyers agents are commoditizing themselves. I'm just opened up the Shoami app that I have, right? Literally, an agent puts in there and says, "Would you go show my house for me? I'll pay you $10, $50, $30." Right? That's the value to go meet a client at a home to show them what could be their largest financial transaction. Come on, that doesn't make any
Oh,
sense.
I'm once a week at least. I'm on a Zillow call. We're a flex broker in Zillow, which is a pretty honorable place to be. The demands they're putting on us to deliver customer service up front, it's insane. So I can see this happen. Mike, you and I talked about this the other day. Right now, we're paying $400 or $500 up front for a Zillow lead because we know what I wrote down on my sheet here is what the MLS does. It creates a competitive bidding environment, and it guarantees a compensation. Like there's no price fix, so we don't guarantee what the compensation is, but we guarantee there's going to be some compensation. So now Zillow's going to sell me a lead, and then I'm going to find out that the broker who took the listing isn't going to pay me anything, and I've got to serve my customer so I don't get paid. Why would I pay $500 for a Zillow lead when I don't get any guarantee I'm going to get a refund, a return on my investment?
You won't.
No. And then another thing I want to throw out quick, because I'm spending all the time on this, and then I wonder, because appraisals are a big deal in our world, right? Because banks want to lend based on what else is available to make sure the value is there. And, if a house has a pool versus one doesn't have a pool, they make an adjustment. So, and it's kind of like, what's the house really worth? Well, if one house sold for $500,000 and there's no commission paid by the seller, and another house sold for $500,000, but the seller paid a commission, are they going to make an adjustment and say, well, the house that sold for $500,000 with a commission really only sold for $485,000? So the $500,000 no buyer agent commission house is really only worth $485,000? Let that one sink in. Ramble around in your clothes dryer. It's going to be very interesting. So this case comes up on October 16th, and our parent company Anywhere has already settled for $83 million, and Remax followed second for $55 million. And we'll see what the other big players do. But there's a lot of big players named in this class action lawsuit. So very interesting. But think about the value. If you're agents, think about the value you're delivering and how you can do it better and demonstrate it. Right?
Absolutely.
That's the point I wanted to make. I mean, we could do a whole other topic on this one. I could drag this out for as long as you want.
Right. No, and brand matters, leadership matters, experience matters, and the clients are going to look to all of those things as things do shake out. So, lots
How
to
many
think about,
calls do
Brian.
we send a week from agents who are good agents who call us because we have more experience than they? Not that they don't know the answer, but they want to validate the answer and make sure they're doing a good job. How many calls a week? 4, 5, 6, easy,
Oh
each
yeah.
of us,
Oh
plus
yeah.
the rest of the 15-person management team.
Yep.
We're there, if nothing else, as a sounding board to say, hey, make sure I'm doing this right because I don't want anybody to get hurt. And that's what I've got like 3 of those I got to handle this afternoon.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So
Cool.
those are the 3 topics. We went a little longer than we planned on today, but important topics nonetheless. So we want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back to you next week with some more relevant topics about what's real in real estate today. Thanks for watching, everybody.
What's real in real estate?
See you guys.